Inspiration. It can come from anywhere. The rhythm of the streets, the still of the night air, or the mind of a genius. But the experience is timeless.
If on a mountain I could stand.
Ghetto Eyes Publishing. The art of entertainment. Own the experience.
Yes, the Uptown Comedy Club. If you watch any Def Comedy Jam show, what you're seeing is the Uptown Comedy Club. I mean, from the way the chairs are set up to the fact that the DJs, Kid Caprice was mounted up in the back. That's where our DJ was mounted up. The Def Comedy Jam was the Uptown Comedy Club. I started the Uptown Comedy Club probably in 1989 as the owner, producer, host. I did everything. I distributed flyers. I did everything. But this was the first black-owned comedy club on the East Coast ever. First ever black-owned comedy club. I mean, it just didn't exist. And it might have been the first black-owned comedy club in the country because I'm giving props to the Comedy Act Theater. Comedy Act Theater is where the late great Robin Harris started. And I don't know if that was I don't know if you consider that black-owned because they did it out of a hotel ballroom and they didn't own the hotel. But when I was doing the Uptown Comedy Club, my name was actually on the lease, which makes me a club owner. When I was in college, I used to promote hip-hop parties and Greek fraternity parties. And something happened in the city where the Greek thing, Spike Lee made that movie, Doing the Butt, or whatever that movie was. What's that doing? School Days. So the Greek thing got crazy. And there were no venues in the city that were big enough to hold the amount of people that were coming out for these things. It was so hot. But the people that were coming to the parties weren't just Greek. It was just people who liked to party. So you would rent out a venue that holds 1,000 people, but 5,000 people show up. And there was riots, and there was bum rushing the doors and stuff like that. So the city sort of cracked down. Whenever I go to places and say, hey, I'm going to do one of these Greek parties, now it's like, well, you got to provide us with at least 50 security. You got to get a $2 million insurance policy. And the city was making it real hard to do events in the city. The last event I had done was a step show / concert. And a riot broke out. So I got to a point where I got tired of the headache that came with doing hip hop parties, Greek parties, college parties. And when I found the comedy, I noticed that at comedy shows, people were so busy laughing, nobody would fight. I mean, you didn't even need security anymore. So I'm like, you mean I could rent a venue? I don't have the expense of security. When you tell somebody I'm doing a comedy show, they don't make you get a $2 million insurance policy. So for me, it was like, I wanted to stay promoting, but I didn't like the headache and the grind. Initially, it was just, when I made the transition for a number of reasons. One is, I was taking guys who were doing comedy for 6 months, and I was putting them directly on TV. If you had 6 months and 7 minutes of comedy, I could make a call and get you on Showtime at the Apollo. If you had 6 months of stage time and 10 minutes, 15 minutes of comedy, I could get you opening for Freddie Jackson. So I'm getting these guys, they're doing comedy for 6 months, and I'm getting them $2,000 a show, not $2,000 a week or $2,000 a month, $2,000 a show. So after a while, I started looking at the money, and I was like, I'm getting my percentage, but I'm on the wrong end of that percentage. The money just got so big. When I started, I did a show. I booked Flex for a show one time at a college. They were paying him $5,000. I wasn't doing stand-up at the time, but his car broke down on the highway. He made some wrong turns, so he was late. So the school, the people who was organizing the show, they had a room full of people. Comedy show's supposed to start, and Flex is nowhere near, and they had a $5,000 check. And they were so desperate to get the show started, they said, Kevin, we'll give you the $5,000 if you could just go out and tell some jokes. But I couldn't tell any jokes, so I had to turn down that $5,000.
This is Positive K on GETV. You don't gotta read the book to know the story. Just like that.